Hey guys, welcome. It's Luke Humphrey here, and I'm excited. This is our first uh, official podcast that we're going to do for Hanson's Coaching Services. Uh, Pretty stoked, a little scared, not quite used to this stuff, but our goal is to get you guys content and get you information not only about the Hanson's Marathon philosophy, but all kinds of training information. So let's just get right into it. First podcast, as I said, so a lot of things I'm learning here on the curve, learning on the job. We've done some videos in the past, but this is going to be the first official thing we do for podcasting. Um, who exactly are we? Chances are you know Hanson's, Kevin and Keith. You probably have read Hanson's Marathon Method if you're familiar with the program. If not, Kevin and Keith Hanson have been coaches of mine for 10 years. The Hanson Brooks Original Distance Project produced 2 Olympians, several World Championship members, lots of U.S. championships, things like that. But they also are more known, especially in the Detroit metro area, for the training schedules for marathons and things like that. And it's really kind of blossomed into a fairly well-known training program across the U.S. and a little bit around the world. So super excited for that because it allows me to give you guys something that will give you the most information that we can, even more than the book may have. So uh, that's really why I decided to jump into the podcast bandwagon. I own Hanson's Coaching Services. We coach a lot of runners around the U.S. And locally, and we use the philosophy that we're going to talk about today. And podcasting is just an easy way for us to get information to a lot of people. So again, though this is a little scary, first time really doing this. For some reason, I've I've talked in front of many groups before, but for some reason this is a little bit more intimidating, even though the only person here is my dog right now. So we'll see what happens. Main topic today, Hanson's Marathon philosophy, something I think that really should be the first thing that we talk about because it allows for us to lay the foundation and the cornerstone, as you would say, and from there we can branch out to all the other different topics that we can talk about specific to Hanson's and marathoning. All right, so this information is about the cornerstone, and that cornerstone is cumulative fatigue, high level of marathon readiness. So might not be what we're talking about if you're training for a 5K, but for the marathon, this is very, very specific. And it really encompasses 4 different pillars or parts to the cake of success. And that's balance, moderate to high mileage, consistency, and active recovery. And we'll talk about all 4 of these things individually. But the more we talk about them, I think what you'll find is that they are really intertwined. It's really a web of everything being there, holding each other up, and without one, the others tend to fall apart. So let's break it down. Let's talk about balance. First component is balance, and that can really have a lot of meaning. But what we're talking about is not skipping on a specific type of workout or not abandoning one type of thing just because we're training for a marathon. So a lot of times what you'll see is they schedule will have a really long run and then miss out on either easy runs or maybe the tempo is a lot shorter than what it could be. Maybe the speed is abandoned, but you really have to train everything even though you're training for a race that's 26.2 miles. So that's what we're talking about in this case. It's also keeping each of these things in proportion to what you're trying to accomplish. You know, even though we do easy runs, it's not going to be the primary focus as we get closer to the marathon. And then we do switch over to more of the strength and the tempo type of workouts. But the point is, they're all there in the training block. It's just put in the right place in order to allow you to be the most successful in the marathon. The other part of that too is the Hanson Long Run. If you knew anything about Hanson's, probably the first thing you heard was, oh, it's a 16-mile long run program. And there's so much more to it than that because by cutting back on the long run, making it appropriate for what the mileage is, then it allows us to add and keep these other components intact. And without that, again, things would fall apart and it really wouldn't work out very well. So don't get caught on the 16 miler. We'll do a whole podcast on that. I can envision that one right now. We do have a blog post on our website, hansonscoachingservices.com. Just search for the 16 miler. Or Hanson's Long Run, and it'll pop up. And then honestly, that's probably the biggest page visited on our website every day. We check those stats, and that one's number one or number two pretty much every day. Again, and I talked about common theme here is that the components are going to be intertwined. So the balance really leads to higher mileage, and the higher mileage really leads to consistency. And the consistency really allows for the appropriate paces in the active recovery. So all these things are intertwined. We'll talk about the next one, which is the higher mileage. Okay, so moderate to high weekly mileage. If you're looking at the PowerPoint slides, then you can see here right off the bat how much more you're going to run off just running 10 miles more a week for a program, for an 18-week program. And what that leads to is just more aerobic development, more running specific development, and it's really going to allow you to run your best marathon. Moving back a little bit though, jumped ahead a little bit. Beginner program for us, right around 50 miles a week at peak. Advanced program, right around 60 miles a week at peak. So it's not crazy high. It's not 100 miles a week for somebody working 40 hours a week or whatever, but it is higher than a lot of programs that you see out there for the marathon. A lot of those programs will be 40 miles a week, and half of that will be a long run. So you really miss out on what else you could be training with. You could miss out on some of the longer tempo runs. You miss out on some of the strength workouts and things like that really could help you benefit more in the long run, no pun intended, for the marathon, but you miss out on those because you focus all your energy on one run. And we'll talk about that later on. But that's how everything is intertwined, because by you just having that balance and running things that encompass all aspects of training, automatically push that mileage up, and it really doesn't have to be something that's going to be a breaking point for you. It's just got to be something that's done right, and we'll talk about that with the paces. So running most of the days of the week automatically pushes your mileage up, right? So if you were used to running 3 days a week and you run a fourth day, your weekly mileage goes up, right? So by us getting you to run 5 and 6 days a week, then it really just automatically your mileage is going to be higher, even though all we did was add another day of running. Keeping the balance automatically pushes the mileage up. When you pull back on one thing, like instead of running a 20-mile long run every week, and you pull that back every now and then, and you're able to do different types of things, like a longer tempo run, like 8-mile tempo run, then even though you cut back on one thing, you kept the other things intact, the mileage is going to go up. And then being consistent automatically pushes the mileage up. So you just running 5 days a week for 18 straight weeks is going to be more mileage than if you ran 3 days a week for 18 weeks. And we can see that on the right, how much that can make a difference, just 10 miles a week. But when it's done right, it makes you stronger. And I talk about this in the paces section. But the mileage itself doesn't necessarily have to be the culprit for you being injured. It's how you do the mileage, how you run the mileage. And think of when we talk to beginning runners, what do we always tell them? It's you can't do too much too fast too soon. And when you do that, then your body just isn't able to adapt as quickly as you would like it to, and then you end up injured. So the mileage itself, if you allow yourself to adapt to it, you're going to be okay. There's going to be those biomechanical issues that you're always going to have struggles with, but that's not a running specific thing. Running itself is not causing that. The biomechanical issue is causing that, and that's important to remember. So if you can control that, then you can control how much you're running a little more easily. So that's my argument for higher weekly mileage. A lot of it's just more. It allows you to do more things. It allows development to happen more rapidly, and gives you more chance at adaptation. So going on, we'll talk about the next components. And the next one is consistency. And cumulative fatigue really only works when you are consistent. If you're taking days off, let's say the biggest thing I get is when somebody says, "Oh, I had to take Friday off after the tempo run because I was just tired and I needed needed to feel fresh for that long run. Well, that's so frustrating because that's what we want. We want you to feel tired going into that long run. We want you to be thinking about the last 16 miles, not the first 16 miles. And that's a classic Kevin and Keith quote. That's what you're training for. We can all make it the first half of the marathon and feel fairly comfortable, but it's that last 13 miles or that second 13 miles that really just is such a, oh man, it can take you to the depths, and you've got to be prepared for it. And there's no sugarcoating it. If you're not prepared for it, it's going to be a struggle. And you can see that on the faces of a lot of people coming in on the finish line of a marathon. So you really have to train to deal with that fatigue and deal with that just general discomfort. And the best way to do that is be consistent with your training. I also think something like along the lines of the mental strength too. I think that with the mental aspect of it, it enforces that don't give in voice in your head, and we all get it, right? If you've never run a marathon, it might not be there yet, but if for those who've run a marathon, it's like you get to a certain point in the race and you don't necessarily want to do it anymore, and this can help you with that because you can make it through. That some point is going to be over and you're going to make it through. You just got to stay with it, and this I think definitely helps with that. And then lastly, and we'll talk about this with the paces, it helps you focus on the appropriate paces because being consistent allows you to have, again, go back to it, the balance of things in your training, like the speed work, the tempo, the strength, the long runs. And then you're forced really to make sure that you're running the right paces for each one. And if you're not consistent, it makes it easy to go too fast, or it makes it easy to skip out on certain aspects of training, most likely an easy run or something like that. And you miss out on an opportunity to get some development that is now gone because you didn't want to be consistent with the training. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about our last component, and this, and I laugh because I'm looking at the slide, and in order for all this to happen, I'm telling you, don't overtrain. And I can hear you right now through the airwaves saying, "What the heck, Luke? You're telling me to run more than I ever have in my life, and I have to run harder things than I've ever run in my life. So what do you think's going to happen, right?" But going back to what I was talking about with the mileage, that's what makes this so important. You have to run the appropriate paces and really be active in your recovery. Whether it's forcing your easy runs to be slower, or forcing some supplemental things like massage or stretching or things like that. And that's beyond the scope of this particular podcast. But I want to focus on the paces. So easy runs are probably the first thing. I always see people running their easy runs too fast, or they run at their fast end of the spectrum of easy paces that we give a person because they just feel like they see that faster end and they completely ignore that slower end, and they only think that they're going to get faster overall if they're running at that fast end all the time. And if you do that, you just end up being overtrained because your body just can't keep up with it. And same thing with tempo runs. I see tempo runs a lot where people are just running faster because they felt good, faster. But the goal is for the tempo runs is marathon pace. And if you run faster than marathon pace, then you really kind of missed out on what we were trying to accomplish with the workout. And you might have felt great, but then if we have to take 2 days off later because now you're tired, then we missed out on the easy run opportunities, and maybe we have to adjust the long run for you. So it really makes it important for all the other aspects we talked about, the consistency, the mileage, and the balance, that all paces in general are run at the prescribed pace, and to me that's the hardest thing for people to accept, I guess. I see it a lot, and I'm not, and I've definitely struggled with it in my career too, but I can tell you once I saw the light and adjusted and saw the whole range of paces that I should be running, not just the faster stuff I should be running, it really allowed much faster development to take place because I wasn't so overtrained all the time, and just it's 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 almost like being sick for a really long time and just accepting that as the normal. And then once you finally feel better, you realize how much better you feel and how much easier things are. And that's kind of the case here. You run yourself down all the time, you never really truly know how good you could feel when it matters. So, um, that's my take on appropriate paces for this particular episode. And that's, you know, one of the main things that I think if people can take one thing from it, I would spend a lot of time thinking about this aspect in general because it just opens up the doors for all the other things to happen. But we'll talk more about different paces later on different podcasts. But just for now, one of the four pillars, I guess I would say, for cumulative fatigue. Okay, let's wrap things up here and kind of bring it all home down the home. So summary: cumulative fatigue is the end result. It's held up really by the four walls or the four pillars. We talked about balance, moderate to high mileage, consistency, active recovery, and appropriate paces. So really, all these things are intertwined, and really without one, the other ones kind of lose their effect. So it's really, really important to take all of that into consideration. Not even only if you're not even using our training program, if you're using a marathon training program, I would strongly consider what we talked about here and apply it to whatever you design yourself or you're going to follow, and really look at those things, look over those things that are in your schedule. Is anything missing? How can I improve it? What can I do? And that hopefully that's what you can get out of this. Um, from here, if you're interested in what we're doing here with the Hanson's philosophy and things like that, definitely come on back because we're going to talk about. I mean, this is what we needed to lay down. This was the foundation to our house. So now that that's here, we can branch out. And we can talk about so many other aspects. But I think that really this was the most important thing to start off with, and get that information out, clear up some things with what we're trying to do, with some of the things that may or may not have come up in magazine articles and stuff. And not that they do a bad job, but when you're limited to 1,000 words or whatever the case is, you can't make all your points and get everything across that you really want to. So some things get just left out because you have to make space. So we don't have to do that here, right? We can talk about it and discuss and all those things. So speaking of that, here's where you can find us. Hopefully you come back. We'll try to get some more information out here as soon as we can. Definitely liking this experiment so far, and I would definitely expect more of this from us. So in the meantime, Facebook, you can find us, Hanson's Coaching Services. Just do a little search for it. Like us, whatever you do for the business sections, I'm not really sure, but like us, put stuff up there. If you're local, we put a lot of events on there that we're trying to do, especially with some group training things. Would love to have people out there. We're going to start doing some clinics, things like that. Twitter, you can find me at Luke _Hansons. That is the Hanson Coaching Services page. I also have my personal page on there as well. And for some reason, I have a lot more followers on that page. But try to get all the information out on everything I can. YouTube, we have some videos up already. We have our channel, so you can subscribe to that. Just search for capital H, capital C, capital S, Humphrey. So that's HCS Humphrey. We've got 5 or 6 videos up there right now. Going to try to put those into podcast form too, and get those out for everybody. More avenues for people to listen to. Lastly, our site, hansonscoachingservices.com. That's where everything happens. Blog posts, post the videos, you name it. We're going to have it on there. Have a lot of stuff already up there. Really excited for some changes coming up to the site and some things that we're going to be doing with our coaching staff and things like that. So I'm super pumped for that as well. And sign up for email notifications. We used to do a newsletter. Getting rid of that. This takes place every time a post is made. It sends out an email to you, so you get instant notification that we have updated our site with a blog post or a video or what have you. So that would be very cool. Hopefully we'll send out some deals and things to through that avenue as well. Get you guys some swag or something. So But that's it. Thanks so much for listening. I kept it to under 30 minutes. It's 20 minutes right now, and hopefully nobody fell asleep. So, all right, we'll talk to you guys later. See ya.